Hi, my name is Chris Jones. I'm also known as Joker in the rugby community, and I'm here with team captain of Oshkosh Rugby, Bill Blake, and also with Caveman, and apparently his real name is Matt Steenerson.
Apparently.
And this is our first show. It's Oshkosh Mighty Pigs Coffee Talk, and I was informed as we got here we're all out of coffee, so we have water. But I wanted to start real quick, and I wanted to apologize to Caveman because I have known him for, I don't know, at least 6 years, and I've been calling him Matt Stenerson, and today he informed me that his last name is Steenerson.
It's a very important distinction.
So I'm sorry about that to
In
start.
the city of Oshkosh, it's important.
So I wanted to start out and just talk about where I came from rugby, and you guys can talk about yourselves as well. So I mean, I started back in high school 20 years ago, and I played for 3 years on the high school team, and then I've been playing with the men's team ever since. And so that's my life story.
Didn't you have a short stint out in California as well?
I did move to California for a year, and I played with the Rebellion out there. Shout
Yeah.
out. Hey. But then I couldn't take it, and I had to come back because I missed you guys too much.
Fair.
So
We're a better
You
team.
didn't even know us yet.
well, I missed the rest of the guys. So. But yeah, so Bill, if you could tell a little bit about where you came from, how you started out in rugby. Maybe it'll give me some ideas, and I'll come back to myself too.
Okay, well, I'm from Waukesha, and I grew up watching my older brothers play rugby. So growing up, it was always ingrained in me that you're going to play rugby no matter what. So when I got to my freshman year of high school, my mom drove me to a school that I didn't go to because we didn't have it at my school. But she drove me to the school, and I started playing rugby and fell in love with it ever since. And then once I got up here to Oshkosh for school at UWO, I didn't know that there was a team up here. And so I was actually at my ex-girlfriend's family Christmas where her cousin said to me, "Hey, Bill, do you want to play rugby?" And I was like, "It's winter. I don't want to play rugby out in the cold." And he was like, "No, I mean in the spring at Oshkosh." And I was like, "Oh, okay, yeah, I didn't know there was a team." And so he actually brought me out and introduced me to the team.
That's good. I think that's pretty common from everyone that we talk to. When they find out that we play rugby, they say, "Where?" And you say, "Oshkosh." They say, "Oshkosh has a team?" So, yeah, that's good. What about
Me,
you,
huh?
Caveman?
Oh, I have the typical story. I was in a physics class, and my friend said, "Hey, do you want to play rugby? You should come play rugby." And I said, "Okay." That is the typical whole story. Junior year of high school, go play rugby. And here I am, 10 years later? No, 11 years later, sitting at a board talking about it. So it must have stuck, right?
That's good. Yeah. Hey, I mean, that's how. So that's what happened to me too. So thanks for jogging my memory because it was so much longer ago than you. I think there was an announcement at my school, and then I went out there and signed up to play rugby. And our first practice was in the parking lot at Red Arrow Park, and we had 7 guys out there. And for those of you that know Wayne Benversi, he was out there showing us how to pass the ball, and it was an interesting time. And I remember our very first game. Maybe you guys have a memory like this too, but my very first game after going to all these practices, they were like, "Okay, well, where are we going to put Chris?" I don't know. And I remember Kinky, the coach of the high school, saying years later that he was scared, didn't want to put me out there because he thought I was going to get hurt. And I was like, yeah, that's exactly how I felt too. Because every year it was all seniors that would come out, and then it was, 1 or 2 underclassmen. But it was a good experience, and I'm happy I went through it. So
Yeah, it's about the same.
same for
I enjoy the parking lot practices.
Right. That's what you have to do when there's snow on the
Yeah.
ground, right?
2 feet of snow. You got to
So-
practice in the parking lot.
Yeah.
Let me talk real quick about, like we said, Oshkosh Rugby and the history. No one knows that there's a team unless you know someone that's on the team. It was actually started back in 1978 by a priest. I don't know the entire story because everyone I ask, it's a little different, but that part is very consistent. Our team, we have guys ranging from the age of 18 all the way right now into their mid-ish 30s. We've had guys in their early 40s before playing as well. People of all abilities, sizes. Everyone's welcome to come out and at least come to a practice. Once we can get you into a practice, I think that seems to help. And then people are pretty stuck on it.
Yeah, well, we got guys who, they start and they've only been playing for a year. So.
Right, and I know here and in LA, there were guys that had never been in sports in high school or college and came out and played. And it's people from all walks of life. I know I played with a doctor and a lawyer, and then you play with anyone from just, crazy college kids and people that dropped out of high school too. Not counting myself.
Yeah.
But again, Oshkosh Rugby, we're members of the USA Rugby Union, the Midwest Rugby Union, and Wisconsin Rugby Union, and that allows us to, well, I'll let maybe Caveman touch on that a little bit, because when I talk about it, I'm still confused and I don't know what any of these unions really do. But Caveman, do you have any other insights on kind of what they do for us or the rugby community?
So, USA Rugby is our overall, our umbrella of the whole country. They provide the insurance and everything that covers us, and they provide basically our ability to actually play. Midwest Rugby Union is our regional area. They provide the scheduling and things of that nature, and our local rugby union, the Wisconsin Rugby Union, is it's made up of us. So each one of our teams sends a representative to the union, and we vote on things, and we set up tournaments and things like that, and that's how we play the game.
Yeah. You can also apply for grants with the Wisconsin Rugby Union, the Midwest Rugby Union, and the U.S. Rugby Union. For developing the game and trying to better your team, you just need to apply for them, and they then will potentially give you the funding as long as they see fit.
Mm-hmm. And also the USA Rugby also helps us with the youth programs by setting up state rugby organizations, and actually Wisconsin's going through that right now. So that's going to be that's the task at hand for the youth groups is to get that going. We'll be the last one, but Wisconsin will have one.
Well, I'm going to have some more questions on the youth programs for you in a little bit as well, because I know that you are very involved in that.
Oh, yes.
I want to go back to Bill. So I'm interested in rugby. When does it start? When's the season?
Well, it's kind of a loaded question, especially for our team, because we typically will play rugby almost all year round. We have a few months there, usually late November to about mid to late February, where we're officially off. But then we're going into all of our seasons, and our competitive season is in the fall. That's when we play the other teams in our league, and that's the only team that we play, or the only teams that we play rather. And then in the spring, it's more of a social season. So we'll do traveling tournaments. So we've even traveled to Nashville, Minnesota, and where else have we gone?
Oh,
I don't know. I wasn't
All over
invited.
the place. Okay. Wow. Anyway, in the spring, it's more of a social season. We get to play teams that we don't play during our regular season, to keep it fun, keep it interesting, make sure that we're playing new competitive teams from different divisions, and we like to have fun with that. And then in the summer, we transition into our summer tournament, 7-style rugby, which is we'll call it the Olympic-style rugby because it was in the Olympics in 2016. But in the summer, pretty much every single weekend in summer, there is a sevens tournament that we could play in if we wanted to, just around the state of Wisconsin.
mm-hmm.
Okay. And then, so when are practices? Where are practices?
Typically, our practices are at 5:30 at Winnebago County Park on Tuesdays and Thursdays. And in the summer, though, between June and we'll say August, we practice at 6 p.m.
Okay, and then I think I kind of touched, or you kind of touched on it, but who can play?
You touched on that a little bit, but anyone over the age of 18 can play the sport of rugby. There are no age limits. There are no athletic ability limits or anything like that. Any body type, person that wants to come out and try the sport, we will gladly accept you into a practice and try to teach you the sport the best we can.
Okay, and you're talking too much, so I'm going to go over to Caveman. Do you know, is there, or what kind of cost commitment is there, or also equipment? Do I need to have any certain equipment? Or?
Well, so when it comes to equipment, rugby's actually, it's pretty easy. You personally need to maybe provide some shorts and cleats, and that's all it comes down to when you're talking about your own personal equipment. Most teams provide some sort of jersey.
Maybe a mouth guard.
Maybe a mouth guard.
It's not a bad idea.
There's an idea.
Yeah.
That's right. I'm from the age before before the requirements of mouth guards.
It's not mandatory, but if you choose
Highly recommended.
to wear one.
And if you're a youth, also, it is somewhat mandatory. But yes. So, but otherwise, it's just the team dues that basically pay for our operations. So, going to tournaments or giving rookies socks and shorts or whatever we do to help them join. Travel costs sometimes, hotels, things like that. You need working capital to make that stuff happen. So that's what we got. And the dues cover that.
So speaking of equipment, then and mouth guards and all that, what about pads? Is there anyone that wears pads at all?
There are pads, but no hard pads. But there are a lot of people who wear pads. They have different shoulder pads and soft pads. They're allowed to wear those.
Probably more so for people that play in the back line.
Oh yeah, the back line definitely. I don't wear them because I have built-in padding.
Okay.
But if certain people might need pads.
Okay.
I don't need them because
No worries. Okay. We're going to take a quick little break here, and we have a short little Rugby 101 video that we will show. And hopefully that'll explain a little better than a weekend.
Rugby 101, the basics. Rugby was first played in England in 1823 when legend has it, William Webb Ellis picked up a football and ran with it. There are 15 players and 7 reserves in a rugby team, and it is played on a grass field with an oval ball. The ball may be carried forward,
All Blacks again. Here is Sevilla player.
or kicked forward,
Smith drops it on ties,
but must only be passed backwards to teammates. A game lasts for 80 minutes, broken into 40-minute halves. The object is to ground the ball over the opposition goal line and score a try like this. Or more like this.
Over the line they go. Cruden lobs the pass right to Jade. Corey Johnson.
All the while defending their own goal line from being crossed by the opposition. And the same 15 players remain on the field regardless of whether they are attacking or defending.
Putting some real pressure on the All Black line here, 5 metres away. Murray didn't see it. Sevilla pounces and Smith works blindside.
Scoring a try is worth 5 points, and it also gives the team a chance to add a further 2 points if the goal kicker can convert the try. This is done by kicking the ball from the ground to between the goalposts. For example,
Now Carter.
and one more thing, the kick must be taken in line with where the try was scored. The other way to score points is by kicking a penalty goal, awarded after an infringement by the other team.
And a good kick.
Or a drop goal. That's when a player bounces the ball on the ground before striking it. And both of these are worth 3 points each.
And they win the test match.
Hey, and we're back. So that video was kind of informative for me. So, and it said a lot better than I can. I don't know about you guys, but
No?
Yeah.
It covered a lot of things. The scoring, which everyone always questions how that works.
right.
It's 5 points for touching it down in the what we call the try zone, but what football might call a touchdown, which is probably why they call it a touchdown.
And it's kind of ironic. Yeah.
All right. So that's what we call it, a try, is 5 points, and then you kick your conversion, sort of like a field goal, and that's worth 2.
Great. One question that I get a lot is rugby. Is it more like soccer, or is that more like football, or is that a combination? What do you normally say when someone asks you that?
Normally when I tell people what rugby is to me is I like to call it a combination of soccer, football, and wrestling. And that always throws people off a little bit, but it's like a continuous game of football without the pads, and it's a safer point of contact than there is in football. Because in football, there are no rules really surrounding how you tackle somebody except for face masks and maybe a horse collar. But other than that, you can take them down however you want. But it's a lot safer in rugby because you have to tackle them, you have to keep your arms wrapped around them, and it prevents a lot of those injuries that happen from the big hits in football.
And well, I'll tell you what Kanky calls it. He says it's from rugby, the country, the city of the Rugby, England. That's where he tells people it's from. When someone asks him if it's like football or soccer, he says it's rugby. So that's
That it is.
Yeah.
So then, what happens when the ball goes out of bounds in rugby? I know that we claim that we know, but if we're going to tell someone and they say, "Oh, he carried that ball out of bounds," now how do you restart that?
There's the set play way is with a line out, and basically you have one person throw the ball in, similar actually to a soccer throw in, usually overhand, but as long as it just comes in, that's all right. And what we have 2 guys usually lift a third guy, and his goal is to catch the ball out of the air while the thrower is passing it into him. And this is contested by the other team doing a similar line out, similar lift.
Okay. Right. Kind of like a jump ball in basketball.
Exactly.
And then whenever you drop the ball forward, that's called, as we know, like a knock on, and then you restart with a scrum, which how I've been told also is kind of like, oh, it's a jump ball on the ground that you roll in. Right.
I guess that's a fair way of putting it. I like to think of it like a hockey face-off.
That's
good.
I like that.
The ball
Probably.
comes in and they got those sticks, and it's the same kind of things happening inside the scrum. Except it's done with the hooker, who is the center guy in the line of 3 at the front of the scrum. His job is to hook the ball with his foot. I think you'll find in rugby that a lot of the names are very simple.
Right. So speaking of, since you brought up one of the positions, do either of you want to go over a couple of the positions, maybe some of the more known positions? You don't have to say what they all do, but
Yeah, sure.
Well,
I'll go over some of the
maybe
positions.
just a couple in the forwards, which are like more of like the stereotypical linemen in football,
Yeah.
and then the backs, which are more like the backs, the wide receivers and running backs of football.
Yeah, well, pretty much you got it. The forwards, they're usually your bigger guys. They're more of your lineman type, and oftentimes they tend to be more of the workhorse on the field, while the backs, they're your skill players, and they end up being more like a running back or a wide receiver. They're faster, a little bit more agile, and they're a little bit better with the ball than the forwards are. But some of the more notable positions are scrum half, which you play, and the scrum half is pretty much the distributor on the field. He's the one who's passing the ball, communicating with the entire team, and making sure that ball gets to where it needs to be. Another notable position is the fly half, because then that's kind of like the quarterback of your backs. He's the guy who's distributing the ball to the back line and running the show, essentially, and calling the plays back there. And in the forwards, notable positions that we have are the prop. They're usually your big guy on the field. Two big guys, rather, because there are two of that position. And then we'll also go with the flankers, or they're usually called just flankers. But with the flankers, they're kind of like your linebackers on the field. They're a little bit smaller than some of the other pack players, but they have to be fast. They need to have similar skills to the back line, but they also need to be able to tackle very well.
Okay. And what position do you play?
That's a loaded question when you're asking me, because it honestly depends on the game, on what position I'll be in, because I will play prop, I'll play flanker, I've played fly half, and I've even played scrum half. I played that in Platteville last year. And everybody was like, "You're pretty big for scrum half," and I was like, "That's what I'm playing today." So I play all over the field. I wouldn't necessarily peg one position as my position.
Well,
Okay.
and that's important, because there's a lot of guys who will play multiple positions. No one is really locked in at any one position. You know, I played prop, I played second row, I played flanker once, 8-man a couple times. So yeah, everyone's going to get around to the different positions on the field, and it's nice that way. You know, you're never stuck at any one position, but also the team can always count on somebody to be able to fill in then, and that's important.
Sure. Yeah, it's good to know several positions if you can. So what would you guys say is the best position to play if you had your choice?
If I had my choice of positions to play, I would play prop.
I actually enjoy prop too.
I love it.
Okay, I'm going to ask you again. What positions would you say is the best position to play?
I would say fly half. And I say fly half
Okay.
because
Caveman, what position is the best position to play?
AA man's always fun. They
Okay, never mind. I was looking for.
Yeah.
I,
was
we
looking
know
for
what you were
scrum
looking
I
half.
knew
for.
what you were
so-
looking for, but you weren't going to get it.
Nope. Okay.
It wasn't gonna come.
Well, we'll move on a little bit here.
Scrum half doesn't give me
I-
the ball enough.
I do want to touch on real quick. Also, you had kind of mentioned this with where rugby. Well, I'll mention it. Rugby has like kind of a negative connotation associated with it, that it's violent or very dangerous. That's one of the first things that people say is, "Ooh, that's so dangerous," when you tell them. Can either of you talk about why it has that negative connotation and how you feel about that?
Yeah. I'll go with this one because I've talked about it a few times. Rugby oftentimes has a negative connotation because people think that it's simply football without pads, and that's really not the case, especially when it comes to the tackle, which is that point of contact where most injuries can happen. Rugby has a lot of rules surrounding it that make sure that the player stays safe. For example, one, you can't tackle high, so if you go around the neck, there's a lot of potential injury around the neck, so you can't tackle high. Number two, you have to go to the ground with the person that you tackle, so you can't just hit them and let them fly away from you. You have to go to the ground, which protects them because you're not flying in recklessly. And I think the third thing that's important is that you can't lift them up and slam them to the ground. It has to be illegal tackles. So there are a lot of rules surrounding that point of contact, which is where injuries oftentimes happen in contact sports, that protect rugby players more than people oftentimes see, because if you're watching YouTube and you type in rugby, a lot of the highlight videos will be just rugby big hits, and a lot of time those big hits are illegal and technically can't be done in a game.
Right. And
Right.
They'd get called a penalty on, and the other team would get, an advantage then. So
Right. And so I want to touch quick on a big event that we have coming up, our annual summer tournament, Pig Fest 10s. It's Saturday, July 15th, where we typically have between 16 to 20 teams show up. And it's a modified version of rugby that Bill touched on earlier. This is 10s, where it's 10 players on each side instead of the traditional 15s. That starts at 9 a.m. Everyone's welcome to come. Fans, there's no charge for them to come. And if they stick around all day, or if they come towards the end, there's a free pig roast for everybody. So that's something that everyone seems to enjoy. And if you're there for the finals, and you're of legal age, there is free beer during the championship match and afterwards as well. So that's something that everyone seems to enjoy, and if you didn't like rugby before, you tend to like it a little more then. So, also, our contact info, our website, www.oshkoshrugby.com, our email address, oshkoshrugby@gmail.com. You can search us out on Facebook and Twitter, and I'm being told that we now have an Instagram account as
Yes,
well.
I do.
So feel free to reach us out there.
Whippersnappers.
And then besides the men and the men's club, I wanted to give Caveman a chance to talk about the youth clubs that have just started in Oshkosh.
Yes, well, I have quite a few things to say about it, but I could talk probably forever about it. But we'll stick to the basics here. So we'll talk about what we have going on right now. So what we have right now is this is our tag rugby season. It goes through it goes from July to June, and anyone can play between the grades of 3 and 8. It's co-ed, boys and girls. They play on the same team. It's flags, so they call it tag, but it's flag rugby. And you are more than welcome to come join and play with us whenever you want. We don't close registration, so anyone can come out and try it.
And that is also at County Park?
That is also at the county park. So we do pretty much all of our rugbying out there at the county park. But yeah, so it's out there. We Tuesdays and Wednesdays through June and July, 4:30 to 6:30. We open it up like that so that it's flexible. So anyone who wants to come out, they have time to make it. So if you can't make it Tuesday, then there's Wednesday or vice versa. And you can't make it at 4:30, just come out at 5:30 and join in.
Okay, so they can just show up. Otherwise, what's the contact info?
The contact info. All right, so we have a website, oshkoshyouth.rugby.org. You can find us on there, and that's our main contact.
Okay. Is there anything else that either of you would like to add on this first version of Oshkosh Mighty Pigs Coffee Talk?
I'll add just one more thing. For youth rugby, we also do have a girls' high school rugby, and we do have boys' high school rugby as well, and those happen in the fall and spring, respectively. And those are also open to pretty much anyone in the county who wants to try out. So we don't turn anyone away. Everyone will get a chance as long as they come to practice. They'll get a chance to play.
All right, sounds good. And I know we didn't have a graphic for your contact info, but even if you reach out to our website and submit it on the men's page, we will forward it on.
That's right.
So
we may know each other.
Right.
Yeah.
All right, Bill, any last words?
Last thing I have to say is anybody of any age, if you want to try out the sport of rugby, come on out to County Park on Tuesdays, Thursdays, 5:30 or 6 o'clock, and check it out.
All right. That's all I got. See you later.
Sorry guys, I didn't realize that I needed you so much. I thought I'd get a new audience. I forgot that disco sucks.